it, Ross. Well done. Good line.
The yellow signs of the Pridgeon safety teams to be seen all along the course, giving the paddlers a lot more confidence about tackling the tiger that the sleepy Umko has turned into for this race. It's not just a question of survival, however, and the race is still on. Herefeld keeping the pace hot, even with a hole in the nose of his canoe. But for the main bunch, it was a nightmare. And if the river's taken your boat, you can always try it without one. But everything comes to an end finally, and the camp at Durncliffe was waiting with hot meals for those who made it through day one. Herefeld and Monteith taking the honours there, followed by Oliara and Pepper, with Simpkins and von Mansberg 2 minutes back in third. Even then, no rest as repairs have to be made to steering and hulls, fiberglass being painted on by the metre. And then, of course, repairs to the paddlers. Eventually, everyone got some sleep, and bright and early the next day, everyone headed down to the start once again. The start of day 2 and the main pack getting away first. The 10 fastest finishers on day 1 kept at the back of the pack and identifiable by the green vests. Among those, Simpkins and von Mansberg chasing Herefeld to Monteith, who had no real lead from day 1 and wanted to try and set up a cushion.
Okay, they're well off at this stage. Copper's going to be nice and happy that they got.
Graham Monteith commenting through his onboard mic that Simpkins will be very happy to have Oliara and Pepper to chase. Oliara and Pepper are also not out of the equation as the river winds its way through some very scenic valleys, although these also acting as heat traps and lifting the humidity level way up. Rob Davey and his K1 up in the middle of the pack, the K2s having far greater speed over the distance, even with some hard paddling in the singles canoes. Herefeld and Monteith now slicing through the earlier starters and opening up a gap to Oliara and Pepper back in second place, who are about 2 minutes behind the leaders, with Simpkins and von Mansberg still in hot pursuit. And that lifting the interest level amongst the other paddlers as they try and stay ahead as long as possible, even with the day 2 rapids proving to be just as bad as those on day 1. Perrow and Clark going very well, still trying to make up for that spill at the start of day 1 and get back into contention for a top 3 place.
We're going fine through the rapids. We just got to go hard on the flat.
The onboard microphone's proving to be an interesting development in canoe racing, as is the onboard camera, which allows a view of just how much work goes into a race like this. Herefeld and Monteith putting in a terrific work rate through the rough water. Things also getting rougher in the lead stakes as well. There's Key and Grant Wilson starting to close up on third place Simpkins and von Mansberg as they hit another of the rapids along the 35k day 2 leg from Durncliffe to Riverside Store. Those paddlers out of contention after crashing out on day 1, still enjoying the race. Edmonds and Rowan battling their way through to 113th place in the end and loving every moment of it. The same going for Simpkins and von Mansberg, especially when they caught Oliara and Pepper in the battle for second place. Simpkins stuck after selecting the wrong line. Key and Wilson taking full advantage of the situation to pass them and move up into third place, with Oliara and Pepper not too far ahead. Leaders and backmarkers alike getting stuck in the same place. A difficult shallow fall-off giving no indication at all of the right line, so a lot of luck needed to make it through first time. On this one, even experience not enough to ensure a safe passage. Perrow and Clark also falling foul of the rapids and having to drag themselves over the top of the rocks before finally reaching the safety of deeper water once again. On the go once again, and although precious seconds were lost, Perrow got them off again quickly before the force of the water could cause any damage. That's the secret of rock climbing in a race like this. Kevin White and Ken Holden finding themselves in the same position, not getting out fast enough, and the water pushing them onto a bad line, which could have broken the back of the canoe. But luck smiling on them at these rapids, and the pair managing to get away unscathed apart from a few scratches on the bottom of the canoe. White and Holden going on to finish a well-earned 8th place overall. Campbell and Shattuck coming in just 1 second behind them in 9th. The finish line finally interviewed, and after 70 kilometers, everything coming down to a final sprint for the line, as Perrow beats Clark and Longley for 5th place, and Key and Wilson beat out Simpkins and Van Mansberg for 3rd. But in the end, it was Hereford and Monteith who took line honours in 4 hours, 1 minute and 46 seconds, 5 minutes ahead of Oliaro and Pepper.
I'm very happy. It's number 6 for me, but it's the first one for Mont, so it's happy for Mont. We had a great race. Paddle lengths weren't quite right, but it was good.
No, we had a good day today. We decided we'd go hard from the start, get rid of the guys with us, so that if we had another mess up like yesterday, we'd have a little bit of spare time to fix anything, and we just went flat out. Had a clean run, water was at a nice level, and I'm chuffed to finally manage to win this one.
Of the MTN Adventure Challenge series, some 2,000 participants had got involved in the challenge, but now we're down to 8 teams in the final, 4 aside, 4 members in each squad to battle out to see who gets top spot in the MTN Adventure Challenge. Just go join our commentators. This action, remember, was last week at Sun City.
By the time the MTN Adventure Challenge had reached Sun City, more than 2,000 contestants had been cut down through several regional eliminations. The remaining elite group of competitors, comprising 8 teams of 4 members each, gathered to battle for the supreme position. The MTN Adventure Challenge wasted no time in calling the contestants. The Toyota 4x4 Challenge had very little in common with the average motor event. It was designed to test precision driving skill, focused planning, and above all, team communication. Each team was shown a carefully laid out route which they had to negotiate with exact precision against the clock. Doozy team, consisting of 4 Doozy winners, was expected to do well in all the physical events. The Toyota 4x4 task was a discipline which required less physical aptitude and therefore left them with no advantage. This would be their greatest challenge. The QVC Raiders brought a focused, deliberate perspective to the event. It was a sign of things to come. But the 4x4 challenge belonged to the Rainbow Warriors, a team who benefited from good communication with one another to conquer the task in top form, even picking up bonus points along the way. With the Rainbow Warriors winning the event, the Doozy team managed to stay in contention, with the QVC Raiders in 3rd place. Before the next event, there was a chance for a bit of fun, as the teams united in a spirit of muddy camaraderie.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, straight the wheel. 4. Come on, go, go.
Most who have visited this hidden paradise have experienced its splendor, but the MTN adventurers experienced a more hostile side. SAA orienteering discipline, each team was required to run a route using GPS navigation points, a course which took them around a mountain, as they marked each point on a special wristband. To be successful, the teams had to ensure that the course they had decided on was the quickest route possible. The greatest danger was to miscalculate and lose time.
On the 1, 2, and 3. From A to B, to C to D, back to A.
QVC Raiders, who set off first, took the utmost care in their planning. Other teams were in hot pursuit. Safety was imperative, and so MRI was on standby as the teams tackled the precarious terrain. Although the checkpoints were easily recognizable, they could not be spotted amongst the dense growth of the mountainside. This provided problems for teams whose planning wasn't as thorough as it should have been. Frustration set in as valuable time was lost. Probably the greatest surprise of the event was when the QVC Raiders finished in almost half the anticipated time. QVC Raiders had changed the face of the contest, drawn the battle line, surpassed the expectations of both the instructors and their opponents by taking an enormous lead. Every team who came in after them heard the bad news, including the intimidating Doozy team. The teams took to the lake for the Continental Command task, a complex event which was also the first direct confrontation in the MTN Adventure Challenge. The 8 teams were reassembled into 4. Together with one opposing team, each team was required to build a raft and travel to a designated point. At the designated point, they picked up kayaks and continued the race. Once in the kayaks, the race became a relay, with each team competing for themselves again. The first team to cross the finish line at the MTN Tower won the race. When the Powerade Doozy team was drawn to join forces with Team Effecto, a confrontation of immense proportions was at hand. Combining to build the raft that would take them to the pickup point meant that they would start off in the kayaks together. The capsizing of Team Carrymore and Rainbow Warriors raft demonstrated the vulnerability of the first leg. Failure to reach the kayaks in time meant that a team could not be in contention. The Doozy and Effecto teams understood the importance of an early changeover and led the way. The first changeover into the kayaks was swift, with Effecto heading out first and Doozy following within striking range, while the chasers were only just managing to reach the shoreline. While the first kayak teams of Doozy and Effecto were battling it out, their respective partners were returning the rafts to the starting point. As the partnership swapped over, the Doozy team fought their way forward. The Continental Command task lived up to everything it was expected to be as the kayaks stormed across the water. Doozy team at last found themselves in their element. This was the opportunity to make up for the disappointment of the morning, but Team Effecto would not let up. Doozy's phenomenal victory narrowed the gap between them and the current overall leaders, QVC Raiders, bringing the excitement back into the contest. The MTN Adventure Challenge had not been conquered yet. The early morning of the last day saw the teams coming out for one of the most grueling events of the contest. In the regional events, Team Effecto had proven to be a very strong team. But at Sun City, they got lost before the first checkpoint. Powerade Doozy carried the name, held the reputation, and was the crowd favorite to win this event. They followed a simple and effective strategy to ensure that they would keep up the pace. By sending a team member ahead on a Peugeot mountain bike to find the checkpoints, they could follow him unhindered.
Give me that
It was an impressive tactic, and the Doozy team made good time. The Doozy team did so well in this race that they were the only team to overtake the runners in front of them.
Come on!
As was expected, they set the quickest time, but they would have to endure one more onslaught.
Oh, that's what I prefer. No, I do this.
The QVC Raiders followed a different tactic. With two strong runners leading the pace, the weaker runners would circulate the mountain bike in order to keep up. This tactic was also working, as they managed to keep up with the Doozy team. Two kilometers before the end, the QVC Raiders lost valuable time when they struggled to find the checkpoint. In order to win, they knew it would take a remarkable effort in the final stretch to recapture the lead. Once again, QVC Raiders had stolen victory. The Valley of the Waves played host to the final tasks in the MTN Adventure Challenge. By now, the competition had become a closely contested match between the top teams. When the QVC Raiders tackled the Old Spice obstacle course as the first team out, they had no idea what they were in for. But they started with the task the way they always did, focused and deliberate. All eyes were upon them as they passed through the course, and opponents tried to find better alternatives. Once finished, QVC Raiders had again set the pace that the others would have to follow. Fresh from their defeat in the mountain bike challenge, the Doozy team was keen to make up good time. They set about the task enthusiastically and energetically. They were doing well, having sent their anchorman through first. One by one, the team members were going into the water and starting to swim to shore. But then disaster struck. The anchorman's foot was tangled in the cargo net, and with a half-filled jerry can on his back, he couldn't muster the strength to pull himself back up. Even his fellow team members couldn't help him. It was left to the safety officer to set him free. After their poor performance in the mountain bike discipline, Team Effecto was adamant